North Dakota. I've been camping here for a week to try and tell the story of the peoples at Standing Rock. People have gathered from over 300 tribes and nations. They've come from the north and they've come from the south to protest against the construction of the North Dakota Access Pipeline. The pipeline that they are constructing here promises, through prophecy, to destroy the lands and the waters at Standing Rock.
It's very important for us to be here. We want to stop this corporation by using the power of prayer and forgiveness. I know we always get bad coverage from the news media, but it's not like that here. We're not against you, DAPL and oil corporations. We love you. We just want you to know it's time to stop destroying the earth.
I've came to Standing Rock to stand in solidarity and unity, and to also bring the people together to show that we are still here and that we fight for our water, because water is our first medicine. We are the people of this country, and we, the people here, have the power to change what the government wants. And we can all respect water, and we can respect all walks of life.
They pepper sprayed us. You will be arrested. What were you shot with, brother? Just the pressure things. There's pepper spray. This is the front line right now. We're protecting her. The police are just coming in full force while we have Casey Camper playing with the sacred pipe. We cannot bring her.
Right behind me is the Frontline Treaty Camp, and the police are currently doing an operation to sweep that camp and to remove all our water protectors. There are mass arrests that are happening.
They're saying we're on private property, but it's not. It is treaty land. This is treaty land. We saw one of those officers crying. She knows she's protecting the wrong side, but it's the only salary she has. You guys are the media. Share this around the world, because we are only here on prayers. We are not violent people.
Just over a week ago, I returned to Australia from my time in Standing Rock. Things have escalated so much since I left. These are not people that are meeting force with force. These are people that are going to the front line in prayer. They are holding a prayer for the earth. And our children are relying on us to take a stand now, not just for those waters, but for all waters. Not just for the native peoples there, but for all people, so that we can all live and thrive into the future.
Big shit happening out there. I mean, it's a little bit weird to have a window on something that's happening so far away, but also feel so connected to those people who are standing up for what they believe in, protecting the land and the earth from just more capitalism and all the crazy things that are happening in our world. And yeah, I'm amazed that my friend Avis has gone to the front lines, so to speak, with her camera to do that. I first met Avis a few years ago when she was starting a group called Think, Act, Change, which was trying to wake up awareness in us about the world that we're in and what our power is to create that. It's been a real honor to know Avis for a little while and to have her joining us here in Zoom from New Zealand, where she is right now. So let's drop into that. Hey, Avis.
Hey, Mikey. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm great. And thank you for going there and through you helping bring that experience back to us here. Look, what's the big moment there that you see from your experience in creating that film?
It's really hard to, like Gab and Megan were saying, it's hard to pin it down to one. But for me, the biggest takeaway was not what I saw, but it was what I felt. And it was beyond the front lines. The story that you just shared was very much about the story at the front lines, but it was the feeling at camps that really, really struck me. It was really about understanding what it's like to truly live in community and be in solidarity and to have one common vision. And I feel like a lot of the time when we're in social change, it can feel very fragmented. And it just showed me the power of what, the Sioux people and the people at Standing Rock call their prayer. When we have that one intention, when we focus on that one thing that is greater than us and that one mission, we have such a strong capacity to create change when we stand together.
Wow, that's very true. It's very poignant, very profound. Thank you.
Yeah.
Why did you go there? Why did you have to put your feet in the earth there and stand with those people yourself? I mean, most of us experience this through clicking and stuff like that. So was it something to do with actually seeing it with your own eyes?
It wasn't anything to do with that. And one of the strange things is I would ask everybody at Standing Rock why they came and where, what they said. And they all said the same thing. They heard the call. And for me, I was traveling across America. I was doing a road trip with friends, and I was in the Badlands in South Dakota. And I went out on a camping trip, and I was out in the middle of nowhere, and I was sitting in meditation. And it might sound a little bit out there, but I was sitting in meditation, and I just heard the call. And I just knew straight away that I would be at Standing Rock. And I didn't know how it was going to eventuate. But then through this kind of series of travel calamities, as usually happen with me, I ended up bumping into a few people. I stayed with some people in Colorado who knew people at Standing Rock. And then I got a random Facebook message from a woman called Juliana Brown Eyes Clifford. And she messaged me, and she had heard about the work I do at Think Act Change. And she was like, we could really do it with some people like you on the ground. And she is a Sioux woman. And I was like, oh, where are you from? And she's like, oh, I come from the Badlands in South Dakota. And, and I was just like, of course you do. And so from that, I just was like, that's it, I'm going. I booked a flight, and I arrived and got picked up at the airport by a couple of amazing people and brought to camp. And that's kind of where the story started.
Okay. Let's zoom out. Let's look at the big picture for a moment here. And I want to ask you, this is one story in a series of larger stories about how humans and our relationship with our planet. And I think it's a story about seeing Indigenous people standing up on behalf of all of us and the planet itself. When these stories are successful in getting out there, maybe you could share with me what you envision the impact of that story would be if it reached everyone and everybody felt it and understood it.
Well, I think, it's exactly what you're saying here, which is that this is a bigger story. And even the peoples at Standing Rock say the same thing. They say that, this is a fight for the waters at Standing Rock, but it's not a fight for the waters at Standing Rock. They said that they're standing in solidarity with people in Syria. They're standing with those in Palestine. They're standing with Indigenous Australians. And what they're doing is that, for me, the vision of these stories going out is to show unity. And the prophecy that I mentioned in the video is that all people will come together. And this is the time that people will come together to fight for Mother Earth. And the big message that I feel needs to get out there is a return to Indigenous ways. And I don't mean that we all need to go off and live, in a field somewhere. What I mean is that we need to start looking at the world through the eyes and the hearts of our ancestors. And with the Lakota and the Dakota and the Nakota people, when they made decisions around what happened in their communities, they considered what impact that would have on their children in 7 generations. And, this is the way that we need to start thinking and feeling. And so for me, the message is very much around the Indigenous unity. It's about Indigenous sovereignty. It's about the fact that we cannot keep taking from the earth without giving back to the earth. We cannot just keep feeding our greed. It's time to start feeding our souls. And when I say return to an Indigenous kind of way of thinking, it's just about remembering who we are underneath all the stories of the modern world. And that's that we are of this earth. And if it doesn't matter if you're lefty hippie, or if you're religious or you're not religious, there's one simple truth. And that truth is that we all need water to live. We all need water to thrive. And if our earth thrives, we thrive. And that's the message that the Indigenous peoples are trying to get out to the world. They're saying, look, just take a moment to remember that you are connected to the waters, you are connected to the earth, you are connected to the trees. And if you remember that, you won't start digging up oil, and you won't be trying to threaten the waters. And, you know, it's really difficult when you see all of this rape and pillage of the earth and you feel powerless to do anything about it. But, you know, telling these stories, taking part in actions and demonstrations, they do have the power to create change.
Let's go really local here. Well, at least for an Australian audience as well. Definitely the fight here is at the Carmichael mine up in Queensland. Yeah. And seeing people fight over there and maybe not knowing the story of what's happening even locally. Tell us what's going on locally here within Australians, and maybe what can we do to support Indigenous people who might be fighting for the earth at Carmichael mine? Well,
with the Carmichael mine, the Adani group in India are looking at building what is going to be Australia's largest mine. It'll have, I think, 6 overground mines and 5 underground mines. And essentially, most of that is going to be exported to India, to the Adani company, to basically power their power plants over there. What it means for us in Australia, well, I'm in New Zealand at the moment, what it means for Australians and Indigenous Australians is it's a very similar situation to Standing Rock. This is threatening local Aboriginal communities, but it's also threatening the Great Barrier Reef, which we've heard a lot about over the last year with bleaching, and this is just another thing that's going to threaten that. And when we look at what's happening with the Adani mine, you know, they're coming out with all these falsehoods that it's going to create thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs. And in reality, in court, it's come out to show that over the course of the 60 years, it will probably create like 1,500 jobs. So, you know, are those 1,500 jobs worth 60 years of destruction in the earth and the risk to the Great Barrier Reef and the risk to Indigenous peoples, their communities, their way of life, and our waters? So, you know, one of the biggest things that we can do, and the biggest things that we've seen happening with both Standing Rock and Adani, is just what Gavin Megan touched on, which is that we often feel powerless when these things happen. But the fact of the matter is that the banks aren't funding the Dakota Access Pipeline. The banks aren't funding the Adani mine. What they're doing, they're funding it with our money. You know, if you remember that it's our money that they're funding it with, and these banks don't want to be seen to go against their customers' wishes. So if enough of us stand up and say, and call our super funds and call our investment houses and call our banks and say, I don't want my money being invested in fossil fuels. And if you pull your money out of the bank, if you look at where your super is and you put it into ethical investments, then we have the power to change. In Standing Rock, a friend of mine, Ed, ran a defund DAPL campaign, and in 20 days, they got $20 million taken out of the funding banks by everyday people. And, you know, it's very easy to say that these projects are about coal, but they're not about coal, they're not about oil, they're about money. And we have the power to change that. If enough of us stand together, we can defund these programs, and we've seen it happen. We've had Norwegian banks pull $10 billion out of the Dakota Access Pipeline, and we've had Australian banks say that they are no longer going to fund these projects, and they're going to look at more ethical ways of investing.
Thank you. It's a big mission that you're calling us to here, but I feel when we have that solidarity, then we can get there. We can get there. Maybe not in our lifetimes, maybe. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to call now to the audience that's tuned in now and see if there's any questions for people to ask Avis.
Yeah.
I definitely think this is definitely a topic that'll get the fire in the belly. So let's hear what people have to say.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick my head in here again. So Catherine had a great question around conveying people's stories. And obviously with this story and so many other stories, you're really dealing with something that is very personal to people. So how do you go in and build rapport and trust with people and to get them to share that story so that you can then share it with the wider world?
Yeah, that's a really important point. Sorry, just a bit of noise. It's a really important point. Basically what in the Indigenous cultures at Standing Rock as well, you know, you have to be super sensitive. It was about learning the traditional ways. So, you know, I learned that when you went up to somebody, you introduced yourself by your first name, by your second name. You also then had to, you know, say where you were from. And it was just about relating to the person, understanding them, telling your story about what it was that you were looking to do, and then seeing if they wanted to get involved. Instead of just sticking a camera in somebody's face and going, I want to record something. If they can understand your story, your mission, your vision, then they'll jump on board as well. And that's really, you know, as soon as people understood why I was there, they wanted to get involved.
Fantastic. Great. So it's kind of relating on a human level before you kind of bring out all the gizmos and gadgets and get the cameras going. Great. So we've got a question from Tanya. Interesting one. How do you think we can start to reach people with a capitalist, with a capital C, worldview?
How can we reach them with a capitalist worldview? Well, that's the big challenge, isn't it? I feel like it's just about reorientating things. It's not to separate ourselves from people that have a capitalist mindset. It's about really asking them questions. Don't try and put your point of view on somebody else. Just be like, well, you know, how do you feel this might affect your children's future? Or what is it that you really want for your kids? What is it that you really love for your life? And what you'll find is if you ask those kind of open questions, you'll find a common ground. And it's from that common ground that you can relate to people. If you try and push your theories on someone, they'll just get defensive. So it's really about figuring out and showing people that we're actually all after the same thing. You know, everyone thinks they're the good guys. And so it's really about just showing them that we want the same thing. You know, we want a good life for ourselves. We want a good life for our children, and move from that space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Part of sharing stories is being able to listen to them as well.
Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Avis. There's a lot of comments coming through here that, should definitely go through and check out. A lot of support and a lot of people thanking you for sharing the story.
And thank you guys for having me and for your constant support. You know, it's always wonderful. I'll ring Mikey or Pete up and I'll be like, hey guys, I'm in the middle of Dakota. Do you want to help? Let's do it. And so it's always wonderful.
We have to shout out to Monique Upton, who very kindly volunteered to edit your footage from Standing Rock as well. So, you know, all of these things come from people who believe in that better world, and very fortunately can bring their professional skills to that as well. So thank you, Monique, for bringing Avis's story to fruition there. It's really great. All right.
Just one really quick point I wanted to share on Monique is that, and with storytelling, is I went there with a vision for a completely different story, and I filmed a completely different story, but then things changed, right? The situation blew up at Standing Rock, and therefore the story had to change really quick. And so I feel like for people who are watching, you know, you can have a vision, you can have an intention, but then sometimes the story changes and you have to be able to change with it and change quickly. And having someone like Monique who was able to jump and change with the story was really, really important as well. So that's just a really important point for people to be aware of.
Yeah. The best plan is having
the best plan's laid. Yeah, it's about being open to the magic of it through the process as well, isn't it? Avis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We'll hopefully see you back here again soon. But meanwhile, looking forward to more stories from you in the future.
Wonderful. Look forward to it too. Take care.
Thank you.